What's going on, everybody? Tyler here with the Citizens Fireman Podcast. Finally recording again with another episode after a little bit of a break there from maternity leave, but bringing an exciting guest on the day, Bobby Eckert. How you doing, Bobby?
Tyler, thanks for having me, man. I'm doing well. Congratulations on your baby.
Thank you. I appreciate it. For those that aren't familiar with you or your department, Eckert Fire Tactics, give a little introduction, background on yourself.
Yeah, my name is Bobby Eckert. I hail from South Jersey, right. I'm in a suburb of Philadelphia. I'm a second generation fireman. I've been doing this. Started as a junior. I was 14, and at my volunteer firehouse, and then I got a chance to work in a combination fire department as a firefighter EMT, and then I left there to go to the city of Camden, which is it's a port city directly across the river from Philadelphia, and we're about a 200-man fire department, and I've been there since 2006. I'm currently a captain. I've been a captain since 2018, I think, 18, and yeah, it's a great place to work. It's a great place to apply your trade. It's a very old city, like a northeastern old city, so the fire duty's there. And I own Eckert Fire Tactics, which is a fire training company. Some days I love it. Some days I want to jump off a bridge. Some days I want to jump on to somebody else's bridge. But here I am, man. Yeah, I'm a father of 4 children, and I'm sitting in my basement talking to you.
The busy man. So you said second generation fireman, and that was your father. That was
Yeah,
and I've seen some stuff you've posted on social media. I believe he was a fire chief
my dad
somewhere in
was
New
a fire
Jersey.
chief in Collingswood, the town we grew up in. They had a career staff of 11 members, and it's been a combination fire department since the 1920s, and he ran both sides of it. He retired in 1990, well, January 1st, 1997, and right before I got into it as a junior. So he's still around, just turned 86.
So I'm assuming that had a large influence on you deciding to pursue the fire service, kind of growing up and seeing your dad be around it.
Yeah, it didn't. It didn't. It was. I don't know how to explain it. Like, yeah, when I was a little kid, I didn't know any better. Like, that was my dad's job. And then, you see some things, and some things when I was a kid was scared the shit out of me, I would say. But yeah, I mean, the influence was there. I knew it was a good job. I kind of thought when I was growing up, I would do it in some type of capacity, whether it was a volunteer career. And then when I kind of got in like the juniors at 14, it kind of like really bit me hard. And then I started to like expand my horizons of, globally, if so speaking, or nationally, firefighting kind of all over the Northeast and around the country. And, I've always been a big buff, even when I was a little kid, because my mom was a big collector, and I would collect like fire helmets unknowingly, knowing that it would lead me down this path. So
that's awesome. And that's the department you said that he was a chief with. That's also the department that you said you got your career start before you went to Camden, right?
yes, yep.
So probably by then, was there still some older guys around that was still familiar with your dad, worked on the
Yeah,
job with him?
100%. I work with guys that my dad hired. I'm still friends with some of them today. They're mostly, actually, they're all retired. Yeah, I know my dad's personality, so they got to experience it as well. My dad is one of the nicest people in the world, but if you cross him, can be one of the meanest people in the world. So he's an excellent leader. He's I pull a lot of leadership traits from him, and he was definitely ahead of his time. He would do really well in the fire service right now to champion firemanship, because he's just a no bullshit type of guy, and just, is very mission oriented. So I do draw some things from him. We don't talk shop as much as maybe other generational firefighters, but I definitely can see traits in him that I try to mimic in my leadership style when I'm working or things like that. I'm a lot more like my mother than I am my father, so that fiery personality that I kind of have sometimes is more of Linda than Bob. But yeah, I mean, he's a great guy, and he just cares about his grandchildren right now. I mean, that's all he cares about.
It's interesting to hear that you started with a junior program, because we kind of down in the Southeast, they're not really called. We call them explorers in most places.
It was an explorer. It was through like the
Okay.
Boy Scouts of America. Yeah, but I always just say junior, because some people, when I say explorer, people think I'm talking about a Ford. so I don't
Okay.
have to say junior. It's easier.
That's where I started at down here, and it kind of comes and goes, which I feel like it's probably one of those things that's changed a lot too with a lot of the other bullshit that's changed in the fire service. A lot of stuff we've pushed away and brought in, but it seems like for us we hit good patches with them, which the department that I'm with, career department, we don't do any kind of juniors, explorers, anything like that. A lot of the county surrounding us has 11 separate volunteer fire departments, which creates a lot of headache for the county fire service. But most of them have explorers, and some of them run really good programs, and then some of them you show up on a call with them, and they'll have a 12, 13-year old kid turned out in an air pack. And it just blows your mind that some of these programs are being ran so shitty, because if you run those programs right, it's a great feeder program. When you look, you got your career start in that.
Actually,
It's
99% of the people that I was a fire explorer with are all currently career firefighters.
That's most of the people that I work for a smaller department. We're two station, run a battalion and two engines. Hopefully, they've been saying it for years, but hopefully about to add our first staffed aerial on the road. But most of the guys that I work with came from an explorer program at one of those 11 rural departments at some point. And there's so much difference between how those programs are ran. Some of them are just loose as could be. Like I said, you show up and they just let them do anything. And then others, it seems like the Boy Scout programs, though, the ones that are ran through that are a little bit stricter. They've kind of got a more of a watchful eye over them than some of the department ran programs, at least in this area. I don't know if Explorer or junior programs are still really popular up in the Northeast or not.
They're not as I see being able to interact with the fire service the way I do. I see a lot of them. We did a class last evening, and there was a few of them there, and we worked them in. But I think it's like anything with the volunteer fire service. I really think it's a tough thing to get people involved in nowadays, especially that generation. So I've seen some really good ones. I know there's a few strong ones out there. I give it a testament to the people that ran the program and put the time in because it was free. Like they were up there on the night away from their family, excuse me, and putting the time in with us. But the group that I had, we just kind of like gelled, and we fed off each other. And there, there wasn't a time probably from like 14 to 16 ish that you wouldn't find me at the firehouse. And then I fell into the ladies, and that I took a step back a little bit. But it's like anything. It's what you make of it, and it's honestly who's running it and who wants to put the time in to make it something good or not, or structured or unstructured. But it's really interesting here that that there's a fire and there's an Explorer Junior with a self-contained breathing apparatus on. But if they're, I don't know. I mean, what goes on at your end of the country, it would not go on here. That would be like a fine, and the fire chief would get like, it would be a big thing. So we're
And
very
it should be,
we're very
but it
regulated here in the state of New Jersey.
just the volunteer culture, and I've never been that far northeast, but just following along with a lot of things in the fire department across the country and getting the opportunity to do stuff like this and talk to people from different areas, it seems like there's a really large difference between the volunteer culture where I'm at and the more northeastern volunteer culture. You talk to people from different departments, and there's not, when it comes to culture wise and how the departments are ran, there's not a whole lot of similarities at all. The northeastern just model to the way that they approach things is a lot better than how a lot of our departments around here do, and it's one of the reasons why a lot of them are getting a bad name, and kind of contributes to some of that dying volunteerism, because when people come for us, I know when a lot of people show up and they're interested in joining a fire department, the station that I work with actually shares a parking lot with the volunteer department that I started with, and which, us being there 24/7, and it's hit or miss. A lot of people don't hang out at that department like they used to whenever I was coming up through it. But people show up at our station all the time inquiring about wanting to become a fireman or how they can join a department. And I've sat there and watched guys, well, you don't want to go to this department. You want to go get your start over here. Like they're doing things a lot better over here, or vice versa. So it how they're running stuff down here, it's kind of they're shooting themselves in the foot, like you said, with the new generation of people and just as busy as everybody is. Hell, it seems like you got to work 3-4 jobs to be able to live anymore.
That's true.
You're killing yourself to be able to keep members and get new members and keep that fresh blood coming in. Because I know, which I was super active as a volunteer up until the time that I got married and had kids, and which you said you have 4 kids yourself, so it really puts the brakes on a lot of things for you.
It absolutely does. I mean, you kind of hit the nail on the head on volunteerism. Like it's really tough to ask that of somebody, you know, when they're driving to little league and dance practice and this, that, and the other, and going all over God's green earth for their children. But I I think a bigger ask, a lot of people that were volunteer fire. First off, you got to understand something about some of the volunteer fire service. They kind of do it to themselves. I've seen a lot of volunteer fire departments falter because of the people involved in them, and like it's their kingdom, and they don't want to embrace change, or they don't want to embrace tactics, or we did this since 1980. Well, it's not 1980 anymore. It's 2024. Things are very different out there. The fire dynamics very different. Fires are hotter. They're hotter for a lot of reasons. One of them is synthetics. The other ones is these hurricane windows that are going in these houses. Like there's so many dynamics and changes, and there's so many changes vastly with technology or equipment and things of that nature. But it's a hard ask for somebody to be a volunteer firefighter. And when you get somebody young like yourself or myself, when we were younger, I don't know how old you are. I'm 41. So like when I was younger, when I set out to be a career firefighter, it's not that I wanted to put the volunteer fire service behind me. I just can't do it. Like today after I'm done this podcast, like I have like a 3-hour window and I got to go get my kids from school. And, after working a 24-hour shift or a 40-hour shift or however you guys do it, in the middle of the night, do you really feel like getting up for a gas leak and going to the volunteer firehouse? And I don't mean that like a cocky, condescending way. It's just very difficult to retain people that are career firefighters. It's hard. It's a dynamic, but I was with the volunteer firehouse last night, and they have a lot of young people, and they're really trying, and they're doing good things. Like they built a day room, they got a big TV in there. They put people in there for baseball games and football games, and hot dogs, hamburgers on the grill. Like it doesn't take much to get like some camaraderie going. People to want to be around your firehouse. I think people just don't know where to start sometimes.
100%. And a lot of you talking about retaining career guys in the volunteer departments. I've seen a lot around here too. Some of those departments that don't want to embrace change, they don't want to do things for say the right way and keep up with the times, tend to chase those guys off as well. Because
Sure.
for me, going from a volunteer to a career, it was a night and day difference. I remember my very first shift on the career job, sitting back and thinking like, holy shit, like I've been doing everything wrong. Like this is so much more structured. Like I'm not just showing up on a call and running off to do whatever I want, because that's how the volunteer service is around here. And
It's not like that around
once,
here. It's not. It's very structured here. It's very structured for a lot of reasons, and we've gotten that way through tragedy. Honestly, sadly, in the fire service, we're very reactive. So a tragic situation will force us to change. So where we're at in the Northeast, anyway. I mean, there's some things that are still old school, but for the most part, it's a structured environment. But you're looking at where I live versus where you live. Like the denser population, we're densely populated up here. There's so much more. There is some rural pockets, but there's not many. So it's I need to drive a few hours west and like an hour south to get to like a rural area. So you're looking at the population, and I think that drives the structure of the volunteer fire department. In the state of New Jersey, it is so regulated, it's crazy. What you need to be a fire officer, whether you're a career or volunteer, is the same. It's the exact same thing. So your department can also, on top of that, mandate a little more, which a lot of fire departments do. And, like I'm sitting on a battalion chief's list. To be a battalion chief, I need, a level 2 IMS certificate. Well, to get a level 2 IMS certificate, I need to take almost, whatever it is, 11 classes. They're not exciting. Hazmat, on scene, incident commander, which wasn't terrible, but like I'm saying, there's structure to it. But in some places, they can't afford to do that. It is what it is. I just really wish everybody, no matter where you're at geographically or what you're doing, you could just embrace the mission of firefighting and understand that, like, it doesn't matter. Like, fire doesn't care where it is. It's just going to happen. And the same product should happen no matter where it's at. And it's one of the reasons why I started my business.
100%, and I like that too, because a lot of the training and things like that. I mean, obviously you're traveling all over the place. Uh, I know last year came down to North Carolina to passion for the craft.
Last year I traveled
Gone
much, but yes, I was down.
gone to
Good.
FDIC a lot every year, so you get the opportunity not only going out and teaching with your company, but been there, done that as a student, multiple classes as well. And to be able to take some of that and spread it back to some of the volunteer departments. And that's one of the things that we've been lucky. A lot of the culture around us is changing because for my career department, we actually just built our first training facility. I believe we opened it up last year. Took 2-3 years for them to go through the process of building it, and we've been able to start doing, which for us, we're too small to host an academy for our department, because when we hire, we're typically hiring one, if at the most two at a time,
Yeah.
because it's when they've left, they've retired, something's happened, and we're just hiring one firefighter and promoting
That's
people.
very normal I mean, there's shops like that all around me. Like, they hire 1, 2 every couple of years. That's normal. But
So for us, what we've done with this new academy is, or with the new training facility, is we've tried to put back into the volunteer service around us with it. And we've been able to take from where, for in the state of Tennessee, what they require for you to be a volunteer firefighter is a 16-hour intro to emergency services class, a 64-hour basic firefighters class, which just hits the JPRs of Jones and Bartlett or IFSTO, whichever book they're following at the time, and then a 16-hour Fire One live burn. But now we've been able to take some of that and do an in-house program for our volunteers here in our county, and it kind of lets us hold the reins on it to where we have to hit what the state requires us to, but we've started including HMA, HMO in it for them to reach their Fire One, and running the classes a lot longer compared to before. Whenever they took their basic firefighter course, they sat through a PowerPoint on forcible entry and never touched a door, which I know a door prop's a door prop. It is what it is. Or ventilation. You sat there and you highlighted vertical ventilation, but never been on a roof. Never stretched hand lines through a building. They might have pulled them in a parking lot. But now with this facility, we're able to actually take them out and put hands on with these skills and up it a little bit from what the literature is actually saying that they need to learn to be a firefighter.
be very grateful, because even New Jersey people don't have that opportunity. So it's one of the reasons why I do what I do on the side with my business, and run classes like that. In New Jersey, you don't need to put a fire out to be a firefighter one student, and there's many counties that have propane burn buildings, so it's not even realistic. You don't need to cut a roof. You don't need to start a saw. Same thing. The Fire One program throughout America is a failure. It's an epic failure because, number one, the textbooks that they draw from Ifstead to Jones and Bartlett to Delmar, they're just complete rubble. They're trash. They're not written by anybody with authentic street experience, and if they have had it, it's been 30 years ago. There's nothing relatable, and I think people in the career side of the fire service, if you're in like a zone or an area where you have volunteers around you, set the example for your region. And maybe if you set the example and you have a consistent product, then some of the volunteer departments will be like, what they're doing kind of makes sense. Like, oh, we run modified Minuteman. Why do you run modified Minuteman? Oh, this is why we run modified Minuteman. There can't be like a friction between both, because it's one set mission or one set goal. But as corny or as cliche as it sounds, I was a volunteer firefighter, a very proud one, and I really learned a lot in that situation. But I also got a lot from the career fire departments around me to make me a better firefighter now. And we should, I think anybody in the fire service should give back, because this isn't like we don't own the fire service. It's not ours. It's everybody's, right? And it's literally setting the next generation up for success. And the only way to do that is by giving back in some way, shape, or form. I'm not saying to give back in a large impact by like teaching at conferences or whatever, but maybe you could take the time with a new firefighter, a rookie, or brand new somebody that walks in the door, and take the time to show them how to use their air pack, or take the time to show them, how to pack hose line properly, or throw a ground ladder, or, if you have a door prop, maybe how to set the tools, and which way the forks go, which way the ads go, stuff like that. And there's a breakdown from academy training to what is really done on the street. And that's not a shot at the instructors that are teaching there. There's a lot of great fire instructors, but they're hamstringed to a JPR and they can only teach so much. I really think the Firefighter 1 program is just, it needs to be rewritten, and the books need actual people with legitimate fire experience, or at least know a touch better, or in tune better with the chapter that's written. The forcible entry chapter in those books is atrocious. The engine chapters in those books are atrocious. The building instruction chapters in those books are disgustingly atrocious, to the point where the information is 1,000% wrong. IFSTA even admits it. They admit it, but they won't do a reprint because it costs them money. Don't worry about somebody's life. It costs you money. It's the same thing with NFPA. Oh, I got to do the NFPA course, do this, that, or whatever. I just watched that. There was an article or a thing about the PFAS that's in the turnout gear and the cancer causing things. And even like NFPA says, they still want the chemicals in there because somebody's probably getting a monetary kickback. It's so funny that the conglomerates that run the fire service industry are the ones that make the money, and the people actually out there doing firefighting either do it for free or make shitty money. And we're all working 2 or 3 jobs. Isn't that funny? Isn't that funny? That's one of the funniest things to me. And it's one of the reasons why I can't stand being around that bullshit. I can't stand being around it because there's number one, there's no authenticity to the product of what you're doing. But number two, you literally don't care. And not caring to me is one of the worst things you can do as a human being.
And it's funny that you started hitting on that. And I knew that we would get there. I had it written down in my notes, actually, just the disconnect between literatures and the way that things are done, or actually the street ways of doing things. Because, I remember, the lecture, I can't remember the name of the lecture that you gave at Passion for the Craft. Uh, but,
It was my engine lecture. I did engine
yep,
company operations
that's
lecture.
what it was. And I remember the tangent that we kind of went off in that over not being taught to pull a ceiling in a Fire One program.
You don't have to. It's not a thing. And then when Bill or Nancy come to me as a firefighter and they're in the hook position and they don't know how to do it, and the chief asks me how Bill and Nancy did, I'm going to say what? They didn't do good. It's not that they didn't do good. They weren't shown. So if I'm not showing you how to do things, how can I expect something? How can I, if you put a 16-year-old kid in a car and he's never driven a car before, right? What's going to happen? That's why there's like driver's education programs, correct? And there's like driving schools before you get your permit. Same thing. If you want to go cook steak and you never cooked steak before, chances are it's probably not going to be good. You got a shot, it might, but you never know. You can't not show people. That's the disconnect, because again, as cliche as it sounds, there's human life at stake. There's human life at stake, including ours. Including ours. There's a right and wrong way to hook a ceiling. If you hook away from your egress and something happens, you can get trapped and get killed. There's not a charged hose line at the ready. You can get trapped and get killed. I don't want to die in a fire. I'm sure you don't either. So there's such a disconnect, and a disconnect is going to keep happening until people get over themselves, and they can't get over themselves. It's a problem. It's an absolute problem.
Where do you think that this started at? Whether it be the disconnect between the literature that Fire One programs are following, or you hit on the NFPA, and I know there's a lot circling that right now, especially some of the litigation between them and the
I hope the
union.
I hope the IFF, and I'm not a huge union guy. I hope the IFF wins and bankrupts the NFPA and they have to rebuild because they fucking deserve it. They deserve it. They absolutely do. There's no doubt about it.
Where do you think that all this started at? Like how long? Because obviously you've got a lot longer past in the fire service than I have. I'm only 26 years old,
There's a
work
lot
for a super
of
young
great,
department. But where did we get to here?
there's a lot of great people on NFPA committees. There really are. I mean, it's well, number one, right now, I think we're here because of social media, and there's more awareness drawn to it, and I think there's more people willing to talk shit on it and point out the flaws in the organ or in the fire service realm of or the world of the fire service, like this thing and that thing. It doesn't work. It's not applicable, and I think you can see people that don't apply the rules that or the standards that are set forth and still have a positive outcome and put fires out every single solitary day in America. But I also think there's a lot of egotistical maniacs on some of these committees that have such a disconnect from street firefighting, but just want to scratch their ego, or they're getting I'm a firm believer. I will take it to my grave that they're getting some type of financial kickback. It might be legal, illegal. I don't know. I mean, it's you put it in your mind in some way, shape, or form. That's my opinion. I could be wrong, but I said it before. I think it's partly a Ponzi scheme. I really do. If I want to go on the NFPA website right now and get information, I have to put in my credit card number.
100%. You can't just get it for free.
Yeah, it's a fucking
And
joke.
like you said, a good example with the PFAS, all the hard chemicals
Why would you?
stuff in
Why would
turnout
you
gear.
hoard information? I can go to my library
Exactly.
right now and check a book out for free. I have to stop there and fill an application out and put my address down in case I don't return the book so they can come and get it. But I can get information for free. But when it comes to the NFPA and the fire service, I can't. That's interesting to me. Why would you hoard information if it's so vital to my safety and well being? Give me a break, man. Give me
Then
a
why do
break.
I have to pay to get it?
If you're so worried about our safety and well being, then why not take a hard look at some of the people that are on your committees and bring in some new blood and bring in people that actually do this shit all the time. Bring in whatever, make a change. And I just it's unbelievable. It's the same thing. It's the same thing with the people writing the books. It's crazy to me. It's absolutely crazy to me. Some of the information that's in there that it's laughable. And there's so many fire departments say, well, we send them to Fire One because the state requires a certificate. Then they come back and learn it our way or the right way. That's horrible. That's absolutely horrible. That's a thing. Why can't they learn it right way the first time? So we send somebody somewhere to learn a bad habit, then I bring them back and I gotta break their bad habit. You should see when I teach my full weekend classes, my take into the streets. You should see the bad habits that we sit there and break. The biggest one is search. Search. You're not searching for a fucking wall. You're searching for a human being. So when you get in a room and they tell you to look for a wall, no, start looking for furniture. Acclimate yourself with the room. What size room are you in? But again, are we searching commercially? Are we searching residentially? How much compartmentation's there? There just needs to be, it needs to be done better. And it needs to be taught by people or written by people that do it all the time. When I teach my full weekend, I strategically place my instructors at stations where they have experience at. So I don't take the guy that cuts roofs all the time and put him over at the engine station, right? I don't take the guy that is on the engine station all the time and put him on the roof. Make sense? Why can't we do the same thing when it comes to writing these books and shit? There's human beings I know in the fire service that maybe might not be comfortable authoring a textbook, but I bet you could get them to write a few notes down for a chapter on engine company operations or leader lines or Minuteman loads or throwing a ground ladder or whatever. I think the bigger thing is like why don't we come together? Well, first of all, firemen hate firemen. That's one of the reasons why we don't come together. But it's more of why can't we collectively think of a better solution and approach it as a group?
Is Now I don't know how long Eckert Fire Tactics has been
We're in our
going.
we're in our 6th year of existence.
Is some of the disconnect between what people are learning and how they're coming to the job? As you said, we send the new guy through an academy somewhere, and then they show up to you on the truck, and you're learning that their program didn't teach them this, they didn't teach them that. For instance, the hook in the ceiling. Did some of that disconnect kind of lead you to wanting to start Eckert Fire Tactics, or
100%.
is
100%.
to try to get out and teach? Which I know taking it to the streets seems to be your biggest class that you put on.
Yeah, we do 100 firefighters. I started out like lecturing and putting information out on the internet, and it's after the vile pushback from the fire service, which I loved. I would go places and people would ask me questions and on things, and it got me thinking. And then I would go to a conference and I would see some training and I'd be like, man, I know with the human beings that I know in the fire service, my best friends, that we could come up with something better. And I would write notes down and I would draw props down. Like my mind is always spinning on, if I see something, like how can I turn this into a training opportunity for somebody to learn better? Like, just like type personally, I'm like, I carry a notebook. My notes section in my iPhone is loaded. I write shit down all the time. Yeah, I mean, it's that. It's just I really got a lot of satisfaction out of teaching Fire One, because people would see me, or like people would see my parents out at the bar eating dinner and be like, "Are you Bobby's parents? Like, he taught me this and it worked at a fire." That's amazing feedback. So what, like, the feedback we get from our classes are the reason why we do what we do. I'm telling you right now, number one, being an owner operator of business is one of the worst decisions you're ever going to make in your life. Number two, this is such an undertaking. It's not even funny. And number three, the fire instructor world is one of the most dramatically catty places you're ever going to be in your entire life. I'm telling you right now, there are people that hate each other that don't even know each other. They don't even know each other. And it's so hard for people to support each other because they're so worried about whatever. I don't worry about that shit. I worry about the product we're putting out and the people that are taking our class, and that's it. And I get a lot of social anxiety when I'm in large groups. So it's one of the things where I just kind of put my instructors in play and move around and just get going. And it's a no bullshit time for me.
And that's what I was kind of getting at there, because I know that I mean, I could flip back here to let me just go to your little, in volume 1 here, the bio in the back of your book. Whenever you're talking about being an instructor, I mean, it says right there, experience-based street smarts approach to fireground tactics. And that's not what we're getting out of everything that we've been talking about here, from whether it be the literatures that are putting out that these programs are following. It's the complete opposite of what they're getting. So that's vital to the fire service, to actually have effective people, to have companies like yours or instructors that are out spreading what actually needs to fucking happen.
Well, you're looking at, and I appreciate that compliment. I really do. I've always had my disconnect with Fire One was this. I would be teaching a module and I would add some experience that I've had to the module, and I would be told, like, you can't tell them that. Well, why can't I tell them that? It works very well. It works very well. Firefighting is not black and white. It is gray. We taught forcible entry last night, and I said this. I'm a student of forcible entry. I love forcing doors. I've had many doors kick my ass. One recently murdered me, but it happens. But that's a sideshow. That's a sideshow, okay? After I force a door, I got to get inside the door and I got to do my job. Like, that's step one. Well, what happens because everybody talks about door control. You got to control the door, product combustion. What happens when you blow open a door and there's a 100-pound Mastiff pit bull running at you? What do you do? What do you do? Honest to God, what do you do when you don't have time to close the door? Like, is that talked about? Because I didn't I didn't learn that until I got in the city what to do. So it's there. I'm just one example. There's so many unknowns. There's so many what ifs, and you need to have your firefighter as a firefighter, your mind working. Firefighting is mental. It's 100% mental, and a good firefighter doesn't embrace. I mean, a good firefighter can handle everything and be well rounded. But a great firefighter to me puts their mind to it and plans for steps. I got step 1, 2, 3, 4, but also in the back of my mind, might have to pivot to 5, 6, 7, 8, because that's how the fire ground is. It's ever changing. You can't tell people. You can't make a social media post and say this is the best way to do it. Well, that's great if you're stretching your hose line in a parking lot, or you got an open area. What happens when I'm on a dead end street? I got a tree that fell because there's a rainstorm. I got 13 cars in the way. I got a mailbox in the way. I got a fence. I got a drum. You can't put it in a box. You can't put it there. You need to expand and factor in everything. And that's one of the reasons why during my classes, I try to throw you as many curveballs as possible, because I want you to think your way out of the curveball. And it's nothing crazy. It's nothing like we're making shit up. It's not like I put like an airplane crash in front of you. It's all things that my instructors and myself have faced on the street and have, overcome them or not. It's just how it is. And it's the way, in my opinion, our approach has really been proven how people learn. The feedback we get is undeniably amazing.
I like your example there too with the stretching hand lines, and it seems like the whole, you mentioned stretching a hand line in a parking lot, that seems to be a popular training you see a lot. uh I've been guilty of it early in my career. That's where we went, because we didn't have a training facility at the time. And now I look back on it and I think, like, we didn't need a training facility to do this kind of stuff. Just the other day, we noticed that the firefighter riding my truck, that's one of the things that he needs to hit on, because I ride a 3-man engine. That's his job. You're the nozzleman. It's your job to get that line deployed. So we started riding around looking for vacants around the city, looking for places that we can go stretch with real world application to it. But that's actually one of the, talking about being an nozzleman, that's one of the things I had highlighted in the book here. And I'd never really thought about it until I sat down and started reading it. Whenever just the first sentence of page here on nozzleman says, the best seat on the job, period. You're tasked with deploying and operating the initial attack line. Truth is, nobody cares about you. And I
Factual.
love that, because I sat back and I started thinking about it, and I'm like, I've never thought about it that way. But how many times has probably the majority of the fire service, anybody that's ever rode a backseat, or anybody that's ever been a volunteer firefighter out here stretching hose lines off a truck, no matter what, if you've ever had a nozzle in your hand, interior firefighting, you've probably screamed for more hose and you've never got it.
I'm still waiting for hose I called for 15 years ago.
Absolutely. And
That's a reality. But one of the big here's not, and I don't want to. We can be done with fire academy training after the statement. But at the end of the firefighter 1 program, when they do your live burns or whatever, how they break you like in the crews, or when they put you like in a 4-man crew or a 5-man crew, that's not your operational reality. That's not how it is. We ride 4 in my city. It's amazing. But the driver's getting water. The guy behind him is getting a water supply. I'm the officer, and I got a nozzle firefighter. I have a multitude of things to do, so that the hose line's not my. I mean, I need it, but it's not my job. So, as a nozzle firefighter, if you're training people to be a nozzle firefighter, you need to teach them how to stretch and operate that hose line efficiently, and that is, again, going over and around and above things and whatever, whether you're rural, whether you're urban, suburban, maybe a setback, whatever. There's going to be something. There has never been a fire in my life that I've ever been inside and have had a hose line or been in the hose line position where the line moved smooth. Never. There's always something to stop it. Screen door, couch, fence, cop car, tree, lamppost, the battalion chief, whatever. There's always something there to deter it. So if you're the nozzle firefighter, you got to set yourself up for success. The best way I've learned and the way I was taught is grab that nozzle, drop back and grab that first coupling and start moving, because then you have 50 foot of hose. You have 4 stories worth of hose at your disposal.
And that's kind of how we run. I don't know what kind of hose load are y'all running on your
Flat
trucks?
pack everything. It's what it
We're
is.
we're running a triple load. Some
Sorry.
departments around us run a modified Minuteman. We've kind of some of us have tried pushing that for our department, but they've been running a triple probably back when my father was born.
I'll tell you why I'm a fan of the flat pack where I work, and I love the modified Minuteman. I really do think things amazing, and to see it deployed is great. The triple, so the modified Minuteman's packed wrong, and the triple load, which is probably always gonna be packed wrong. When you go to deploy, what happens?
Just gonna fuck up.
Yeah, flat pack, not happening. Not happening. You could literally have a bunch of people with tape around their eyes and not being able to see, pack a flat pack, and it'll still come off.
If they pull it, it's gonna come off the same way every time.
That fucker's moving. It's not what I like about the flat pack is it's not the pack, it's the puller. I can, well, probably not now because I haven't been on the nozzle in a long time, but when I was a nozzle firefighter, I could deploy that flat pack faster than you could deploy your Minuteman, because we trained on it. We did it. Like, that was the thing. But I work in a city. I work in a very urban environment where I sometimes can't even open the fucking door to my rig to get out of it. So it's a tight area. So, and we have cross lays. We got a rear 200. It works out very well for us. But again, what works out well for me might not work out well for you, and that's why I always tell people, like, you got to get in with your operational reality. Firefighters we're very emotional people. We're very emotional. We're very dramatic. That's just, I don't know what draws that in, but a lot of people focus on what they don't have. We don't have this. We don't have that. We don't have this. Well, that's great, but until we get that, we have this, and we might get a fire. So I need to worry about what I have and making it work for me. And if I can't make it work for me, then I'm useless.
100%. And you kind of made me think about it, and you mentioned not being on nozzle in a long time, and you talked earlier about being on the battalion chief list. So you're still riding captain now, and I believe you're riding a squad.
Squad 7 is the company. It's basically an engine, but yes,
Okay.
squad has special operations tools on it, and there's any type of any type of techno rescue, we kind of team up with the rescue, and we supplement them in a lot of ways. If they're out of service or on another run, we're the rescue. But we only have enough equipment to get started. We're definitely going to need more if it's more than if it's a little more invasive. We're going to need some more stuff. But it's there's another component to that. There's I walk into work and I am an engine first and second due, and we're a very busy engine. We see consistent fire do the most first due work in our city. But on top of that, because of the location of my firehouse, I'm the busiest company. I'm doing the most runs, and on top of that, I also have to train in special operations stuff, from anchoring to pickets to 4-to-1s to vehicle extrication, hazmat. We have to train on that. So there's that component as well.
So being on top of being the busiest company when it comes to first due fire load, you've also got all that stacked on top of it. So
Yeah, we're the
now,
busiest runs too, homie. Like, it's not like I run a lot of gas leaks and CO runs and motor vehicle. Like, we do a lot of runs. There's a lot of runs there. I mean, don't get me wrong. Sometimes there's 2 or 3, but you can get a day. And on top of that, you got to go to headquarters for mandatory training, whatever it is, SCBA refresher or bloodborne pathogens or something like that. Then I got to do my building inspections. Then I got to do my pre-plans. Your day can be very. It can, you might not eat lunch till 2-3 o'clock, and you just want to go lay down.
how does now? Because that made me curious. Because now that my mind's thinking on the whole academy training thing, because that's what we've hit the most on in Camden. Once a new hire comes out of the academy, do they go to certain units, anything like that? Because just speaking about, like, for you riding a squad, like all the things that
They're not going there.
you've got compiled.
Yeah, they're
Okay.
not. We're not going there. That's more of a you need some classes to be there type thing. Yeah, they're going to typically go to an engine. If there's a lot of them, we only have so many engines, so you might see them in a truck. The last class they just graduated a week and a half ago. Yeah, like a week and a half ago. This last tour was their second. Last tour was their second tour, and two of them got a really good fire. I was there. Yeah, they're going to go to an engine. They're going to be on the nozzle for a year.
Okay, because that kind of made me curious. Was you talking about as busy as the squad is if you have to worry about that, about people coming out of the academy over to a unit like that?
Now, I mean, I might get
Is
one on overtime. I might get one on a detail. You never know. I don't. I mean, I don't mind it. It's just
but not as a permanent assignment.
no. They're not. They're not. They did. They did it. They did it once, and I'll keep my opinion to myself on it.
So you've rode the squad, obviously engines. I know you spent a little bit of time on a ladder too, correct?
Yeah, I was I was in the truck. I was truck captain before I went to the squad.
Okay. What out of those, what's been your favorite piece to ride?
I really can't say because I enjoy firefighting. I really do. I enjoy I enjoy applying the trade. I've always made it a goal of myself to be well rounded in both engine and ladder company operations. It's been a goal of mine, and I've commanded both. You know, I went to an engine. I went from the squad as a firefighter to an engine as a captain. Then I went to the truck as a captain. Then back to the squad as a firefighter. So, or back to the squad as a captain. So I can't pinpoint one. It's it's been just an honor being there. It really has. I always say it's funny when you work overtime and people like will complain where they're working overtime. Well, if I'm working overtime, you put me in a dumpster. I don't care. Like I'm just
Just there to make some money.
yeah. But I never I I've loved all aspects of the job. I haven't driven a piece of fire apparatus in 8 years. I would love to wheel one to a fire, whether it's a ladder or an engine. But yeah, I don't think I can say that. If you listen to the scrap of Corley, he always gives you that last question: would you rather be first to nozzle, and would you rather search like vent air search above the fire on a good house fire? And I always say nozzle because I haven't had the nozzle in 8 years. I've been a captain. I mean, I've been behind the nozzle or next to the nozzle, but I physically haven't had that fucker in my hand. So it, I've gotten a lot out of everybody I've worked with. I've gotten a lot out of the companies I've been in. I've gotten a lot out of the incidents I've worked, and I'm very proud to a fault of where I work. And I just think it's important to pass it on to the next generation, the product that we do. And we had a really good fire the other night. I think we showed some of these young kids, like, yo, this is what we do here. And, you know, I know it was probably eye-opening for some of them because that place was off to beat the races. But, you know, we got in there and did our thing, and it was good. And to work with some of these young kids that have been on the job 6 or 7 years and to see what they were when they first got out of the academy, like Green, to where they are now, because they've number one applied themselves and wanted to learn, but they've been around really good people to get in there with them and see them work. It was really awesome, man. I'm getting chills right now thinking about it. Like I had a huge smile on my face just watching my homies work. They crushed it the other night, crushed it.
You love seeing that. And one before we start wrapping up too, I know you hit on wanting to. You said you'd love to drive one to a job.
I would.
And just I remember some of the things from your engine lecture back in North Carolina. It seemed like that operator engineer position was something that you really enjoyed in your career as well.
Yeah, yes and no. I mean, it's looking back on it now, yes. At the time, no. I mean, like when I was 23, my captain made me drive for what seemed like an eternity. I was 23. When you're 23, you don't want to fucking drive and stand outside of a house fire all the time. But I did. I mean, it was actually like a running joke on our group. Like the rescue would call over to the firehouse and ask if I was driving that day because we were probably going to go to a fire. Whatever, the moons lined up for me to get that experience pump operating. But yeah, I would absolutely enjoy it. I think there's a lot of satisfaction out of it, especially if you know what you're doing. And I think firefighting is really cool when you have the skills, to a good point where you're able to apply them. I mean, everybody's going to make mistakes. I make them all the time. And if you're a good enough person and you're able to be have any type of humility, you can make an adjustment and make sure it never happens again. But yeah, I did enjoy pump operating, and it's something that I was able to develop programs for my business to pump. We teach pump operations often, we really do. So it's something I still get my hands on, or I'm able to get back.
It was for me, that position's kind of one of those, it is what you make it. I know a lot of people that have promoted up to driver and or even as a backup driver as a firefighter, because for us riding 3-man engines, it sucks, but it's our reality that when somebody comes in the door, we're focusing on training them as a driver and a firefighter at the same time, because until they're ready to drive, as soon as captain engineers off, we've got to move somebody around. We've got to float somebody or hire overtime just to get somebody to drive the rig for the day. But I know a lot of people that have hated the position, and I know a lot of people that have loved it. And I personally loved it. I love driving the truck. And for us, the engineer position, which I don't know, it can be different wherever you go. For us, we call them engineers. Um, you got to do a little bit of everything in my department. So captain takes off, you're moving up. Second due, about 99% of the time after water's secured, you're going to fight fire. You're not dressing out for BS runs at 2 a.m. So I really loved the job of engineer,
Yeah,
but I
like just
also got really complacent at it for a lot of years. And I was that guy whenever I first got promoted to engineer, I was like, damn, like, all right, I'm done being a fireman now. And kind of fell out of love with the job for a little while. And it came back to bite me in the ass and had to play a lot of catch up to get myself back in the game before I was prepared to move out of the driver's seat and do anything other than pump a fire truck again.
it's
So
not.
it's one of those things. It is what you make of it and what you put into it.
I truly agree with you. I'm not dressing out. We're not wearing turnout gear at all. And two things. Number one, like what you said, when you get complacent or you come in with a bad attitude, or maybe you check out for a little while, this job has a way of humbling you in very, very deep and dark ways, or very, very positive and good ways. So be prepared for that. But when I first got promoted and I went to engine one, and my driver was Howard, and Howard drives like Mario Andretti, I called every captain that I ever worked for, and like, I am so sorry for the way I drove. I drove that thing like I was being chased by the police. Like, we got to get there, we got to move. So it's funny how progression of your career goes if you stick with it, and keep your mind sharp and good. But I really enjoy training pump operators in my job. I really, really enjoy it.
It's great. All right, before we wrap up, uh, I think I saw something the other day about maybe another open enrollment coming up for some building construction.
Yeah,
Or
I'll probably announce it. What is today? Today is Tuesday
uh,
or Wednesday, right?
yep,
So
yep.
I'll probably, I don't know when you're putting this out. Today's May 15th. I will probably announce my next Zoom on. I'm going to announce a Zoom. This isn't when the Zoom's going to be. It's going to be. I'll probably announce it May 17th. I just got to pick a date. I got to look at my kid's calendar and see when I can get, a few hours to break away. I'm kind of just waiting for a few calendars to drop, and I'll make the decision. And it'll be. We made it $40. It was 35. We made it $40 for the Zoom, and we're given to a charity every time. So
That's awesome. I missed out on the last one. I was hoping to get in it, and I ended up being on shift that day, and we got a lot of stuff came down on our calendar, so I ended up not being able to register for it. So I hope I'll be able to hop in on this one
yeah,
myself too.
yep.
Anything else you want to put out before we
No,
wrap
I
up?
mean, you just follow us on social. I'm at Eckert_335 on Instagram. That's where I do my most damage because it's easiest to run. Facebook is mystery to me. EckertFireTactics.com is where you can find us. We're mobile. We'll go anywhere in the country to teach. Like I said in a couple last podcasts I did, I'm kind of just backing off teaching hands-on at conferences for about a year or so, just to kind of get my life reacclimated. I was on an airplane way too much last year, and I missed a lot of things in my kids' lives, and I'm not looking to do that this year.
100% family first. All right, Bobby. Well, I appreciate you coming on today, man. It's been fun talking a little
Yeah,
shop
man.
with you and diving deep into some definitely the academy and trainings and everything surrounding the fire service.
Yeah, just be true to yourself, and be humble, and pay it forward. Pass this job on, man. Pass it on.
100%. Well, y'all heard him. Go check out Bobby on social media. Give him a like, follow, and I'll have to edit that. On social media, give a like, follow the pages, and keep an eye out for some of his classes coming up.